During the divorce hearing, in front of everyone and to her husband's mocking laughter, Vivian gave up her property in his favor. But when the judge learned why, he couldn't believe it. Hello, my dear ones. Tell us where you're watching from and how old you are. Enjoy the story. Vivian sat in the stuffy courtroom, silently counting in her head. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what they taught her at the Rainbow House Orphanage. When everything inside is boiling and you can't show it, just count and breathe. Count to 100, and you'll calm down. She'd already reached 347, but the tight knot inside her wouldn't loosen. Across the large wooden table sat Zach's lawyer, a red-faced man in his 50s wearing a suit that probably cost more than her monthly income. He had been talking for at least 25 minutes, his voice trained and confident, every word sounding like another nail in the coffin of her hopes. Your Honor, let's look at the facts, he said, opening another page. The dental clinic White Smile, owned by my client, provided the family with a steady monthly income, on average, $30,000 to $40,000 in net profit. Meanwhile, the flower shop Forget-Me-Not, run by the wife, barely broke even. And in some months, he raised his finger dramatically, it operated at a loss. Mr. Leeper repeatedly, and I emphasize, repeatedly, invested his own money to save his wife's failing business from bankruptcy. Vivian listened while staring at the ceiling. In the left corner, the paint was peeling, forming uneven patches that looked like a map, or maybe clouds. As a child, she used to lie on the grass behind the orphanage fence and watch the clouds, imagining they weren't clouds at all but doors to another life. You just had to jump high enough, and you'd end up where every child had a mom and a dad. Vivian, the judge's voice pulled her back to reality. A woman in her 50s, with a tired face and deep wrinkles around her eyes, looked at her attentively. Did you hear the plaintiff's demands? I did, Vivian straightened up on the hard chair. And what's your response? Do you agree that the Forget-Me-Not shop is joint property and subject to division? Zach was sitting across from her, leaning back casually in his chair. He was tanned, just back from Hawaii with that Rebecca, the nurse from his clinic. His hair was slicked with gel, his shirt snow white, cufflinks gleaming. He caught her gaze and smirked. That smirk said it all, superiority, triumph, a touch of contempt. He thought he'd already won. No, Vivian said calmly. I don't agree. Zach's lawyer winced as if bitten. Zach himself raised an eyebrow, just a flicker, but she noticed. He hadn't expected resistance. Mrs. Leeper, the lawyer's tone softened, almost fatherly. Let's be reasonable. My client is meeting you halfway. He isn't claiming your apartment, even though he could. He isn't demanding reimbursement for the funds he's invested in your business over the past 7 years. He only asks for a fair division of what was built together. Fair? For the first time that day, Vivian raised her voice. She wasn't shouting, just speaking loud enough to be heard. Zach, have you ever spent more than 5 minutes in my shop in 17 years? Zach grimaced. What does that have to do with anything? I gave you money. Isn't that enough? You gave me money once, Vivian said, opening her much thinner folder, neatly organized with colorful tabs. Her lawyer, Heather, a young woman around 30 who worked for almost nothing because she believed in justice, had helped her prepare it. A long time ago. The initial payment for rent and renovation. Here's the contract. Here's the receipt. After that, look here, every rent payment, every flower order, Sheila the florist's salary, utilities, advertising, packaging materials, vases, ribbons, pots, all paid from the store's revenue. From my profits. Want me to read out the amounts? Or would you rather check yourself? She handed the folder to the judge, who flipped through it silently. Her face remained unreadable, but her fingers lingered on several pages longer than usual. Zach's lawyer leaned toward his client, whispering something quickly. Zach frowned, then waved him off irritably. Nevertheless, the judge finally said, looking up, the shop is formally registered as joint property. By law, both spouses have equal rights. Technically, Mr. Leeper is entitled to half. I understand, Vivian nodded. The law's on his side. But I'm not giving up Forget-Me-Not without a fight. If he wants it, let him prove his right in court. Let him hire appraisers, experts, witnesses. I'll fight for every penny. Zach laughed, not loudly, but mockingly. Vivian, come on. You're a smart woman. You know this is absurd. I can afford to drag this out for years. I've got a clinic, steady income, great lawyers. What about you? How will you pay yours? A month, maybe 2, and then what? You'll sell the shop to cover court fees? I'll pay with my own money. Vivian met his eyes. Money I earned, not yours. Oh, for God's sake, Zach raised his voice. How long are you going to keep playing this pride game? I'm offering you a normal solution. We sell the shop, split the money, and move on like adults. The shop is not for sale, Vivian said quietly. Why not? Zach slapped his palm on the table. The judge shot him a warning look, and he lowered his tone, though the tension still crackled. Vivian, explain to me, as a person with higher education, what's the point of holding onto a failing business? It's not failing. Vivian opened her folder to the right page. Here are the reports from the last few years. At first, yes, we were in the red. Then we broke even. Now there's steady profit, growing every year. And do you know why you don't know that? Because you never cared to ask. You just decided my work was silly, some woman's hobby with flowers and ribbons. Zach said nothing, but his eyes showed a flicker of surprise. Vivian, the judge took off her glasses and wiped them with a tissue. I can see neither side is ready for compromise. I suggest a 30-minute recess. Maybe you can discuss things more calmly outside the courtroom. I don't need a break, Zach began. Neither do I, Vivian added. The judge sighed. Nevertheless, the court declares a recess. Please, everyone, step outside. The hallway smelled of floor cleaner, old paint, and other people's dramas. The linoleum creaked underfoot. Heather, Vivian's lawyer, fidgeted with her pen as they walked toward a bench by the window. Vivian, I have to be honest with you, she said quietly, sitting down beside her. He really does have more resources. He can drag this out for a year, maybe longer. He can file counterclaims, demand independent assessments, bring in experts, dispute every number in your reports. It's a lot of money and time. Are you ready for that? Do I have a choice? Vivian looked out the window at the gray October sky. The wind was shaking the bare branches of the poplars. There's always a choice, Heather said gently. You could agree to a settlement, take the money, start another business once things calm down. Another business? Vivian repeated. Do you have any idea what it's like to start over at 40? Heather didn't respond. I grew up in an orphanage, Vivian said quietly, still staring out the window. It was called Rainbow House, a pretty name for a gray building outside the city. There were 42 of us there, all different ages. Some were abandoned in hospitals, some taken by child services, some brought in after fires, accidents, or worse. We belonged to no one. You understand? We were nobody's children. She paused. Heather waited. When I turned 18, they let me go. Gave me a high school certificate, $300 to get started, and the address of a dorm where I was supposed to have a room. Room was an exaggeration. It was a corner in a room shared with 3 other girls. I got a job at a flower stall in the market. The owner was a mean woman who yelled at me for every wilted rose and paid me pennies. But I stayed. Because I liked it. I liked working with flowers. It was the only thing that made me feel even a little bit happy. Heather listened in silence. 3 years later, I met Zach. He came to buy flowers for his mother's birthday. He spent a long time choosing, asked for my advice. I helped him put together a beautiful bouquet. A week later, he came back. Then again. And then he asked me out for coffee. I fell in love. Not with him, but with the feeling that I mattered to someone. That I wasn't nobody. You know what I mean? I do, Heather said softly. When he proposed, I said yes right away. I didn't even think. I thought it was fate. He promised we'd be a family. That we'd have kids, a home, happiness. I believed him. For 17 years, I believed him. Vivian went quiet. Raindrops began sliding down the glass. And forget-me-not? Heather asked carefully. 7 years ago, I found a small space on the first floor of an old building. About 250 square feet. Dirty, run down, with leaking pipes. But it had a big window facing the sun. I looked at it and just knew, this was my place. I convinced Zach to give me money for the initial rent. He agreed, reluctantly. Said it was a silly idea, that the flower business wasn't for me. But he gave it anyway, probably just to shut me up. She smiled faintly, a sad, joyless smile. I scrubbed that place for 3 weeks. By yourself? I washed the walls, painted them, hung wallpaper. Zach never helped once. Said he had his own work. When I finally opened, I didn't have a single customer that first week. I stood there among the flowers and cried. I thought, that's it, I failed, all that work for nothing. Then an old lady came in. She wanted a bouquet for her granddaughter's wedding. I tried so hard, picked every flower and branch with care. When she left, she gave me a tip, $20. And she said, honey, you have golden hands. You'll go far. Vivian wiped away the tears that suddenly appeared. And I did go far. The shop started making a profit. Not right away, not fast, but better every year. I built a loyal clientele. People started recommending me, ordering bouquets for weddings and anniversaries. I hired an assistant, Sheila, a lovely girl. I finally felt like I was doing something real, something of my own. You see, for the first time in my life, I wasn't nobody. I had something that was mine, something that gave me purpose. And that's why you don't want to give up the shop, Heather said softly. It's not just a shop, Vivian looked her in the eyes. It's proof that I'm worth something, that a kid from an orphanage can build something with her own hands. Do you know how many of my old roommates from Rainbow House are still alive? Where they are now? I know about 3. One's in prison for theft. One overdosed. Another one. Never mind. We were all unwanted, but I made it out. And forget me not, that's my victory. I won't give it up easily. If Zach wants it, let him prove his right in court. But as a gift, never. Heather was silent for a while, then nodded. All right, we'll fight to the end. At the end of the hallway, a door slammed. Zach came out with his lawyer. He lit a cigarette right by the window despite the no smoking sign. The security guard took a step forward, but the lawyer whispered something to him, and the man backed off. Money fixed everything. Zach spotted Vivian, took a drag, and exhaled smoke toward the window. Stubborn as always, he said. Did they teach you that in the orphanage? To stand your ground even when everyone knows you've already lost? Vivian slowly stood up from the bench and walked closer. Zach, do you remember how we met? He smirked. At the flower market. You were standing in that ridiculous pink apron, smiling like a doll. I thought, cute, simple, no pretensions, no big expectations. Just what I needed. Just what you needed, Vivian repeated slowly. Convenient, quiet, grateful for any attention. You weren't looking for a wife, Zach. You were looking for an accessory to your successful life. So what? He shrugged and flicked his ash. I gave you everything you have. The apartment, the money for the shop, a respectable last name. Without me, you'd still be selling flowers at that market stall, freezing for pennies. Maybe, Vivian nodded, but that stall would have been mine. And white smile, you built it on my back. I worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, so you could invest in expanding your clinic. I stayed silent when you came home at 3 in the morning after meetings. I pretended not to notice women's perfume on your shirts. I even stayed quiet when you brought your nurse, Rebecca, to our house for Christmas and introduced her as a colleague. Zach dropped his cigarette on the floor and crushed it under his shoe. So this is revenge, huh? For Rebecca? For me not being a saint? Come on, Vivian, let's be real. I never lied to you. Men are built this way, they need variety. You're a grown woman, you should understand that. It doesn't mean I didn't respect you. You didn't, Vivian corrected him calmly. You never respected me, Zach. To you, I was an object. Useful, convenient, but still an object. And you know what? It's my fault too. I let you treat me that way because I was scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of being nobody again. But you know what I've realized over the past 6 months while we've been going through this divorce? What? He folded his arms across his chest. It's better to be alone than to be nobody next to someone. They're not the same thing. Being alone is a choice. Being nobody is a sentence. Zach smirked. Philosophy for the poor. Comforting yourself with pretty words? Fine. We'll see how long your philosophy lasts once your lawyers start sending their bills. He turned and walked back toward the courtroom. When they returned, the judge was already in her seat. Her face was tired but focused. She had clearly seen plenty of stories like this in her career. Are both sides ready to continue? Ready, said Zach's lawyer. Yes, Vivian nodded. Good. Mr. Leeper, do you still insist on dividing the flower shop forget-me-not? I do, Zach said firmly. Mrs. Leeper, do you still object? Vivian opened her mouth to say yes, but stopped. Something flashed through her mind, fast and sharp. A memory. Yesterday's phone call. A stranger's voice. Vivian? This is St. Joseph Hospice calling. Your mother, Paula Ringer, would like to see you. She doesn't have much time left. Her mother. The woman she hadn't seen in 40 years. The one who'd abandoned her at birth and vanished, now dying and suddenly remembering she had a daughter. Vivian took a deep breath. No, she said. Heather turned to her sharply. What do you mean, no? I don't understand, Zach frowned. I changed my mind, Vivian said slowly, weighing every word. I'm giving up all claims to the shop forget-me-not. Completely. In Zach's favor. The silence that followed was so heavy they could hear the old lamps humming overhead, the creak of a chair, a pin dropping in the next room. Say that again? Zach stared at her, wide-eyed. I'm giving up the shop, Vivian said clearly. Take it. It's your victory. Zach started laughing, first softly, in disbelief, then louder. Soon he was clutching his stomach, laughing so hard tears welled up in his eyes. I knew it. He slapped the table. God, I knew it. I knew you'd break. All that pride, all that talk about my business, my life, and in the end, you give up. This is hilarious. I see right through you, Vivian. His lawyer nodded smugly, gathering the papers. Heather had gone pale, gripping Vivian's hand under the table, silently asking what was happening. The room was dead quiet. The judge banged her gavel. Mr. Leeper, that's enough. Zach managed to compose himself, still chuckling under his breath. Vivian, the judge said, looking directly at her, do you understand the seriousness of your decision? You're giving up property valued, by preliminary estimates, at no less than $200,000. Is this a deliberate choice? It is, Vivian said firmly. But I have conditions. Zach stopped laughing. What conditions? He asked warily. Vivian reached into her old handbag and pulled out a sealed white envelope stamped with the logo of a medical institution. I want the property division finalized today. Right now. Immediately. I'm ready to sign all the papers relinquishing my rights, right here and now. In return, I ask that the divorce and all legal procedures be completed as quickly as possible. Why the rush? Zach frowned. What's in the envelope? My personal circumstances, Vivian said, handing the envelope to the judge. They explain my decision. The judge opened it, pulled out a sheet of paper with a blue seal, and read it. Her face shifted, just slightly, but Vivian noticed. When she looked up, there was something new in her eyes. Compassion. Understanding. Mr. Leeper, she said quietly, folding the paper back into the envelope. I strongly advise you to accept your ex-wife's proposal without any further conditions. Why? Zach jumped to his feet. What's in there? Let me see. That's confidential medical information. The judge shook her head. I can't disclose it without Mrs. Leeper's consent. But I can tell you this, your behavior in this situation comes across as highly unethical. Vivian, Zach turned to her, his voice uneasy. What's in there? Are you sick? She didn't answer. Show me, he demanded, stepping toward the table. I have a right to know. No, Vivian took the envelope back from the judge. You don't. You're getting everything you wanted, the shop, your freedom, your victory. Isn't that enough? Zach stared at her for a long time, suspicious, calculating. There was something flickering in his eyes. Not concern, no. More like curiosity, mixed with cold reasoning. This is some kind of trick, he said slowly. You're up to something. I'm not up to anything, Vivian replied wearily. I just want to end this as soon as possible. Get divorced. Split the property. And never see you again. Silence stretched between them. Zach's lawyer leaned over and whispered something in his ear. Zach listened, nodded. Fine, he said at last. Have it your way. Just don't come back later with complaints. The documents were signed in silence. Only the scratching of pens on paper and the dull ticking of an old wall clock broke the stillness. Zach signed with big, confident strokes, not even reading the text. Vivian wrote slowly and carefully, Vivian Leeper. For the last time with that name. All done, the judge said, gathering the papers into a folder. The divorce will be finalized within 5 business days. Your divorce certificate will be mailed to you. Zach snatched his copy of the papers and shoved them into his briefcase. Finally, he muttered without even looking at her. Free from this dead weight. He walked out first, his lawyer scurrying after him. The door slammed shut. Vivian sat still, staring at her trembling hands. Vivian, the judge called softly. Everyone else had left. They were alone. You're a very strong woman. I wish you luck. Vivian nodded, unable to trust her voice. Outside, a cold October drizzle was falling, thin, unpleasant, seeping down her collar. Heather caught up with her at the courthouse steps. Vivian, she said, opening an umbrella to cover them both, what was in that envelope, if you don't mind me asking? Vivian stopped and looked up at the gray sky. A report from the hospice. My mother's dying. Cancer. Final stage. She doesn't have much time left. She asked me to come. Oh God, Heather breathed. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Don't be, Vivian smiled faintly. I don't know her. She left me at the hospital when I was 3 days old. I grew up in an orphanage, and she never, not once, tried to find me. And now, when she's almost gone, suddenly she remembers her daughter. Will you go? Vivian paused. I will, because if I don't, I'll spend the rest of my life asking myself, what if? What if she wanted to explain? What if she had a reason? I don't want to live with those questions. And the court, the shop. You gave all that up for this? Zach would have dragged it out for years. Out of spite, greed, control. I don't have that kind of time. I might have a little bit left, enough to get to know my mother, while she can still talk, while she's still conscious. So I chose what mattered more. Heather stayed quiet for a moment, then hugged Vivian briefly, warmly. You know, she said softly, I really admire you. Vivian hailed a cab and gave the driver the hospice address. She sat silently, watching the wet streets outside. The city was bracing for winter, the trees almost bare, people wrapped in coats, the sky hanging low and gray. The hospice was on the edge of town, in an old brick building that used to be a hospital. The sign was faded, the paint peeling. Inside, it smelled of medicine, laundry detergent, and something else, something hopeless. Paula Ringer, Vivian told the nurse at the front desk. I'm her daughter. The nurse, a plump woman, studied her face for a moment. Go ahead. 3rd floor, last room on the right. But, she hesitated, don't stay too long. It's hard for her. Vivian climbed the stairs slowly. Her legs felt heavier with each step. What was she going to say? How do you look into the eyes of the woman who abandoned you? The room was at the end of a long corridor. The door was half open. Vivian pushed it gently and stepped inside. By the window stood a hospital bed. A woman lay on it, small, frail, her skin yellowed, her eyes sunken. Her hair was gray and thin. Her hands on the blanket were as delicate as a bird's. Vivian? The voice was raspy, weak. Yes, Vivian moved closer. It's me. Paula slowly turned her head. She looked at her, and for a moment, a faint smile appeared on her face. My God, you look so much like me. When I was young. The same eyes. Vivian sat on the chair by the bed. She stayed silent, unsure what to say. Thank you for coming, Paula whispered. I thought you wouldn't. I would have had every right not to. Why did you abandon me? The words escaped before Vivian could stop them. Paula closed her eyes and was silent for a long time. I was 20, she said finally. I was in medical school, in my last year. Your father was one of the professors, Ian. I fell for him like a fool. But he was married. When I got pregnant, he told me we had to end it. Said he had a family, a reputation, a career. He offered me money for an abortion. Vivian listened, her jaw clenched. I refused. I thought I could handle it. I gave birth to you. And for days, I lay there in the hospital, looking at you, thinking, what am I going to do? I'd be expelled. A single mother with no degree, no job, no money. I panicked. I signed the papers and ran away. Like a coward. She opened her eyes and looked at Vivian. I'm not making excuses. I know what I did was cruel. I know I stole your childhood. But I was weak. Just a scared, stupid girl who ran from responsibility. And after that? Vivian asked quietly. All those years, you never tried to find me? I did, Paula said softly. A few years after you were born. I finished school, found a job, rented an apartment. I went to the orphanage. They told me the files were sealed, that a mother who'd signed a surrender had no right to contact her child. I could have gone to court, but I was afraid again. I thought, what if you hate me? What if I only make things worse? Vivian stayed silent. I kept track of you, Paula went on. From afar, through some people I knew in social services. I found out you'd left the orphanage, that you got married, opened a shop. I was happy for you, honestly, I was. Happy that you made it. That you didn't disappear like so many kids from the orphanage do. But I didn't have the courage to reach out. And now, she gave a bitter smile, now that I have nothing left, I suddenly found the strength. Selfish, isn't it? Yes, Vivian said quietly. It is. Silence filled the room. Somewhere down the hallway, someone moaned. A gurney creaked. And my father? Vivian asked. Ian. Who is he? Where is he now? Ian Tolman, Paula coughed, reaching for a glass of water from the bedside table. She took a small sip. A dentist. A very good one. He works at a private clinic now, I think. One of the senior specialists. He has a family, a wife, 2 children. He doesn't know about you. He doesn't know? Vivian frowned. I never told him I had the baby. I told him I'd had an abortion. I didn't want to ruin his life. Stupid, huh? I protected him and abandoned you. Vivian stood up. I need to think, she said. It's too much. All at once. Vivian, wait, Paula reached out a trembling hand. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm not asking for it. Just come sometimes. While I'm still here. I don't need long talks. Just sit with me, please. Vivian stood by the door. Inside her, everything was churning: anger, pity, confusion, pain. 40 years without a mother. 40 years of building a life on emptiness. And now this dying woman was asking her just to sit by her side. I'll think about it, Vivian said, and walked out. Outside, the rain had grown heavier. She stood under the awning, watching the water stream down from the roof. Then she took out her phone and pressed a contact. Sheila. The shop. Sheila, hi. It's me. Vivian. How did it go in court? Her assistant's voice was tense. It's over. I gave up the shop. It belongs to Zach now. Silence on the other end. What? Why? It's a long story. Sheila, tell me honestly, if Zach becomes the owner, will you stay? No, Sheila said firmly. He's rude and stingy. You remember how he talked to me when he came by? Like I was a maid? No, I'm quitting. Then quit today, Vivian said. Right now. Take your pay and your things. Don't wait for him to show up. And you? What will you do? I don't know yet, but I'll figure something out. When she hung up, Vivian called a cab and rode home in silence. The apartment greeted her with emptiness. Zach had moved out 2 weeks ago, taking all his things. Only her books, the plants on the windowsill, and the old furniture he didn't care to take remained. Vivian made herself some tea and sat by the window, watching the rain, thinking. No shop, no husband, a dying mother she didn't know, and a father who didn't even know she existed. What now? Her phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? Vivian? A man's voice, deep, slightly husky. It's Liam. Liam Cooper. Vivian froze. Liam? From Rainbow House? Yeah, he laughed softly. So you do remember me? Remember him? Of course. He'd been 3 years older, living in the boys' dorm next door. When she was 12 and he 15, he once defended her from a group of older girls who had stolen her breakfast. He'd gotten scolded by a teacher for it but never told on her. They'd been friends after that, quiet, careful friends, like kids in an orphanage who are afraid to get attached. How did you get my number? Vivian asked. Took me a while. Through social media, some old contacts. Vivian, I need your help. Or at least I need to talk to you. Can we meet? Is something wrong? Liam hesitated. My wife died 6 months ago. Cancer. I've got a daughter, Dana, she's 9. I'm struggling. I run a coffee shop chain, 3 locations around the city. I work a lot. Dana's withdrawn, having trouble at school. The psychologist said she needs, a woman's presence. Family. And I remembered you. Thought maybe you could help. Even just with advice. Vivian closed her eyes. Liam, my life's falling apart right now. I got divorced. Lost my business. Just found out my mother's dying in hospice. I'm not exactly the person who can help anyone. Maybe that's why we should meet, he said softly. 2 Rainbow House kids whose lives are upside down. Maybe it'll be easier together. Vivian smiled. For the first time that awful day. All right, let's meet. Where? Come to my cafe. It's called Cozy Corner on Maple Street. Tomorrow, around 4? I'll be there. After hanging up, Vivian sat by the window for a long time. The rain kept falling. The city drowned in water and twilight. And one thought kept circling in her mind. Maybe this was a sign. Maybe when you lose everything, life gives you a chance to start over. Or maybe it was just the wishful thinking of a woman who'd spent her whole life looking for a place where she belonged. The next morning, Vivian woke up early. She stayed in the shower for a long time, letting the hot water wash away her exhaustion. She put on simple jeans and a soft dark blue sweater. When she looked in the mirror, she saw a 40-year-old woman with gray strands near her temples and faint lines around her eyes, but her gaze was steady. You've got this, she told her reflection. You've been through worse. The Cozy Corner Cafe turned out to be a small, warm place with wooden tables and bookshelves along the walls. It smelled of coffee and fresh pastries. Behind the counter stood a tall, broad-shouldered man with short hair and kind, tired eyes. Vivian, he said with a smile. Liam. They hugged, awkwardly, like kids. Then sat at a table by the window. You haven't changed much, Vivian said. Okay, that's a lie, you've aged, like all of us. But you still have those serious eyes. He poured her coffee from a carafe. I closed early yesterday so we could talk in peace. Dana's at her grandmother's, my wife's mom. She takes her sometimes in the evenings. Tell me, Vivian said quietly. And Liam began to talk. About his wife, Courtney, whom he had met 10 years ago. About how they opened their first coffee shop together with the last of their borrowed money. About Dana's birth. About how 2 years ago Courtney began to feel weak and went to the doctor. The diagnosis. The treatment. The hope. The relapse. The end. When she died, Dana was there, Liam said, his voice trembling. She held her hand. She was 7. Can you imagine? 7 years old, and she already knows what death is. After that, she stopped talking to me. She goes silent for weeks. Sits alone at school. The teachers complain she's become aggressive. She pushed a girl once, tore up someone's notebook. I don't know what to do. And the therapist? Vivian asked. We go, he said. No progress yet. He says Dana feels abandoned, that she needs stability, warmth, attention. But I work from morning till night. 3 coffee shops, it's no joke. Staff, suppliers, rent, taxes. I get home around 10. She's already asleep. In the morning, I wake her for school, and she doesn't even answer me. Vivian listened quietly. At some point, she realized she was seeing herself in Dana, a little girl who'd lost the most important person in her life, terrified she'd be abandoned again. Would you like me to meet her? Vivian offered, just to talk. Liam looked at her with gratitude. Really? You don't mind? I don't. I've got a lot of free time now. The shop's gone. No job. Just a dying mother in hospice, and I don't even know how to feel about that. I heard about your divorce, Liam said softly. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's for the best. Zach wasn't a bad man. We just lived parallel lives. 17 years side by side, but never together. You know what I mean? I do. They sat in silence, sipping coffee. Outside, a light drizzle blurred the street. You know, Liam said after a while, when Courtney was dying, she asked me one thing. She said, find Vivian. That girl from the orphanage you told me about. She'll understand Dana, because she was a lost child too. Vivian froze with her cup in her hands. You told your wife about me? Of course. You were my only friend at Rainbow House. The only one who didn't treat me like an outcast. Remember when we ran away that time? Over the fence into the woods? Vivian smiled. I remember. The caretaker yelled at us for a week. We lost outdoor time for a month. But we found that strawberry field, Liam said with a grin. Best day of that summer. They looked at each other. There was warmth there, something old, familiar. A bond that time hadn't broken. Bring Dana tomorrow, Vivian said. I'll meet her. Dana turned out to be a thin girl with dark hair tied in a ponytail and wary eyes. She walked into the cafe holding her father's hand and immediately stared at the floor. Dana, this is Vivian, Liam said, kneeling beside his daughter. The lady I told you about, remember? Dana stayed silent. Hi, Dana, Vivian said gently. You know, your dad was my friend when we were kids. A long time ago. The girl lifted her eyes for a moment, then looked down again. Dana, why don't you show Vivian your drawings? Liam suggested. You brought them, right? Dana hesitated, then pulled a sketchbook from her backpack and handed it to Vivian without a word. Vivian opened it and flipped through the pages slowly. The drawings were dark, filled with sharp lines and heavy shadows. One showed a house without windows. Another, a tree with broken branches. On the third, a girl standing alone in the middle of a blank page. You draw really well, Vivian said softly. You do. Dana didn't respond. You know what I noticed? Vivian pointed at the picture of the girl. There's no sun here. And no people. Just you. Dana shrugged. And this one, Vivian turned the page. The house is cracked all over. Why? Because it's broken, Dana said quietly, her first words of the day. Broken? Vivian repeated. Can it be fixed? No, Dana shook her head. When a house breaks, you tear it down. Liam's hands clenched under the table. Vivian saw his face pale. You know, Vivian said, closing the sketchbook, I used to think that too. When I was about your age. I thought when something broke, that was it. The end. But later, I learned something. What? Dana looked up. You don't always have to fix what's broken. You can build something new. It won't be the same. It'll be different, but it can still be good. Dana stared at her for a while, then gave a small nod. Dana, Liam said gently, leaning toward his daughter, Vivian offered to come by sometimes. Maybe you two can draw together? Or she can teach you to make flower bouquets, she's really good at that. I don't want to make bouquets, Dana muttered. What do you want then? Vivian asked. The girl thought for a moment. I want Mom to come back. Silence filled the space, heavy, painful. Liam turned to the window. Vivian could see his shoulders trembling. I wanted my mom to be with me too, Vivian said softly. All my childhood, I wanted that. But she wasn't there. And you know what I realized? It's okay to want that. It's okay to be sad. But it's also okay to keep living. Dana sniffled and nodded. She told me to listen to Dad, and do well in school, and not to cry. Do you cry? Vivian asked. At night, under the blanket, so Dad doesn't hear. Liam suddenly stood up and walked outside. Through the window, Vivian saw him standing there, covering his face with his hands. You know, Vivian said, gently taking Dana's hand, your dad is sad too. Very sad. He just doesn't show it because he's afraid of making you upset. Grown-ups do that sometimes. They hide their sadness to protect their kids. But it doesn't really make it any easier. What should I do then? Dana asked. Talk, Vivian said softly. Be honest. Tell your dad you're sad. That you miss your mom. That you're scared. And listen to what he says. Maybe it'll be easier if you both share it. Dana stayed silent for a moment, then suddenly threw her arms around Vivian, tight, desperate, the way someone hugs when they're drowning and finally finds something to hold on to. Will you come again? She whispered. I will, Vivian promised. I definitely will. When Liam came back, his eyes red but his face calm, Dana walked over to him and took his hand. Dad, can we go home? Yeah, sweetheart. Let's go. They left together. Vivian stayed behind, sitting in the empty cafe, looking at the drawings in the sketchbook. Broken houses. Lonely trees. Emptiness. She knew that emptiness. She had lived with it for 40 years. That evening, Vivian went to the hospice. Paula was lying with her eyes closed. Vivian sat down quietly, without turning on the light. I know you're here, Paula whispered without opening her eyes. How? I can feel it. You have a special scent, like flowers. Vivian said nothing. Tell me about your life, Paula asked. What was it like? What happened to you? And Vivian told her. About the orphanage. About the cold rooms and the caretakers who yelled more than they hugged. About Liam, who once defended her. About being released into the world at 18 with no one to rely on. About working in a flower stall. About meeting Zach. The wedding, the hope for a family. The shop that became her purpose. The empty years of marriage where she was more an accessory than a wife. The divorce. The loss of everything in a single day. Paula listened silently, tears rolling down her cheeks. Forgive me, she whispered. Forgive me for not being there. I don't know if I can, Vivian said honestly. It hurts too much. 40 years, that's a lifetime. I know. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. Just, don't leave. Stay with me. I don't have much time left. Vivian sat quietly for a moment, then nodded. Okay, I'll come back. The next day, on her way back from the hospice, Vivian decided to stop by her old shop. Just to look at it, to say goodbye. The shop had once thrived under her care. The sign was still there, but the display window was empty. The door was locked. Vivian peered inside. It was dark, papers scattered across the floor. Hey, what are you doing there? A man's voice called. Vivian turned. It was the security guard from the neighboring store, Thomas. She knew him. He'd always greeted her politely. Thomas, hi. This was my shop. Oh, Vivian. Didn't recognize you right away. I heard you got divorced and gave the shop to your husband? Yes. But what happened here? Why is it closed? Thomas scratched his head. Your ex showed up recently. Kicked out the salesgirl, that Sheila, right? Said she was fired. Then he spent a few hours inside, loading stuff into his car. Later, some guys came, took out the fridges, the cash register. They said the place was being cleared out for a new business. Guess your ex wants to sell the space with all the equipment. Vivian felt something twist painfully inside her. Sell it? But the shop was doing fine. Guess he's not interested in running it. Flowers aren't his thing. He's a dentist, right? Vivian stood there, staring at the dark window, realizing Zach hadn't even tried to keep her work alive. He destroyed it, took the equipment, fired the staff, locked the doors. Years of her effort, thrown away like nothing. Are you okay, Vivian? Thomas asked, concerned. I'm fine, she said, straightening up. Thank you. She walked away quickly, before the tears could choke her. She sat down on a bench in the nearby park, pulled out her phone, her hands shaking, and found Zach's number. She dialed. Yeah, he answered after the third ring, sounding irritated. Why did you close the shop? Vivian asked. Oh, it's you. What shop? Forget-me-not. My shop. You shut it down. I didn't shut it down, Zach said lazily. I sold it. Well, I'm selling it. Found a buyer for the equipment and the space. Good deal, actually. I'll make more this way than wasting time on those stupid flowers. But it was a real business. Loyal customers. Profit. Vivian, don't be ridiculous. What profit? A few tens of thousands a year? That's pocket change. I make that from one patient. I never needed that shop. I just didn't want you to have it. You and your damn pride. So I took it. And now I'm selling it. Vivian listened in disbelief. You did it on purpose? Out of spite? Not spite, Zach chuckled. Principle. I don't like being challenged. You challenged me. Now live with the result. He hung up. Vivian sat there on the bench, phone in hand. Around her, people were walking their kids, dogs were running, someone laughed. Just an ordinary autumn day. But inside her, everything was collapsing all over again. The shop was gone. 7 years of work, erased in just 2 days. Zach hadn't even tried to save the business. He'd simply wiped her off the map, as if she'd never existed. She remembered the day it opened, standing in that empty room surrounded by flowers, thinking, this is mine, my place in the world. She remembered her first customers. She remembered Sheila, a shy girl on her first day, who grew into a talented florist. And all of it was gone, destroyed, for money, out of spite. Her phone rang again. Liam. Vivian, hey, how are you? I'm fine, she lied. You're not. I can hear it. What happened? So Vivian told him. About the shop, Zach's call, how 7 years of her life had turned into just another business deal. Come over, Liam said. Right now. Don't stay alone. Vivian went. Liam met her at the door of the cafe and pulled her into a tight, brotherly hug. Come in. I closed up for lunch, just for you. They sat at the same table by the window. Liam poured coffee. You know what I think? He said. Zach's a small man. He couldn't break you, so he broke what you built. But this isn't the end. Then what is it? Vivian let out a bitter laugh. I have nothing left, Liam. Nothing. You're still here, he said seriously. You, your mind, your hands. You built one shop, you can build another. With what money? I don't have a cent to start over. Then work with me, Liam leaned forward. I mean it. I need a manager, someone I can trust. Someone who knows what it's like to build something from scratch. You'd be perfect. I don't know anything about running a coffee shop. You'll learn. You understand people, money, and hard work. And most importantly, you're honest. I'm not offering this out of pity, Vivian. I really need help. 3 locations, constant issues, I can't do it all. You need a job. I need someone I trust. Let's help each other. Vivian looked at him. There was sincerity in his eyes. No pity. No condescension. Just genuine faith in her. All right, she said finally. I'll try. Perfect, Liam smiled. You'll start Monday. Salary's $3,500 plus a share of profits. Sound fair? More than fair. They shook hands. But there was something deeper in that handshake, the return of old friendship and trust reborn. That evening, Vivian went to see Paula again. She told her about the shop, about Zach, about Liam's offer. This Liam, Paula whispered, he's a good man. A very good man. The best I know. Then hold on to him. Good people are rare. Vivian smiled. We're just friends. For now, Paula smirked faintly. But I see the way you talk about him. Your eyes light up. That's just because I'm happy he's back in my life. After all these years. Maybe, Paula coughed, and Vivian handed her a glass of water. Or maybe it's something more. Time will tell. They fell silent. Dusk was gathering outside the window. Vivian, Paula said softly, I want to tell you about Ian. Your father. You should know. Why? Vivian frowned. He didn't care about me for 40 years. Because he didn't know. And if he did, maybe things would be different. He's a good doctor. A good man. He was just scared, like I was. So what am I supposed to do? Show up and say, hi, I'm your daughter? I don't know. But you have a right to the truth. And so does he. Here. Paula's trembling hand reached out with a business card. His clinic. Bright Smiles Dental. He's the head specialist there. If you decide to, go see him. Vivian took the card and stared at it for a long time. I'll think about it, she said finally. The Bright Smiles Dental Clinic was downtown, inside a sleek new glass-fronted business center. Vivian stood outside, unable to make herself go in. The card in her pocket was creased from how many times she'd taken it out over the past few days. What would she even say? How could she explain? Finally, gathering her courage, she pushed open the heavy glass door. The place smelled like expensive air freshener and disinfectant. The reception area gleamed white, the walls lined with framed certificates and diplomas. Behind the desk sat a young woman in a white coat. "Good afternoon. Do you have an appointment?" "No," Vivian said, stepping closer. "I need to see Ian Tolman. It's personal." "Dr. Tolman only sees patients by appointment," the woman replied politely. "His schedule's full for the next month. I can book you with another specialist if you'd like." "It's very important," Vivian insisted. "Please tell him. Tell him Vivian's here." "About Paula Ringer." The woman frowned but picked up the phone. "Dr. Tolman, there's a woman here asking to see you. Says it's personal." She mentioned the name Paula Ringer. Vivian couldn't hear the reply, but she saw the woman's eyebrows lift in surprise. "All right," she said into the phone. "I'll let her know." She hung up the phone. "Please wait a few minutes. Dr. Tolman will see you as soon as he's free." Vivian sat down in a soft chair in the waiting area. Her palms were sweaty, her heart pounding. She tried to breathe evenly, to calm herself, but couldn't. Time dragged on. Finally, a man stepped out of one of the offices. Tall, gray-haired, with intelligent, kind eyes. He wore a white coat, glasses hanging from a chain around his neck. "Vivian?" he asked, walking toward her. "I'm Ian Tolman. Come into my office, please." They walked down the corridor and entered a spacious office with large windows. Ian closed the door and motioned for her to sit. "You mentioned Paula Ringer," he said, sitting across from her, folding his hands on the desk. "I haven't seen her in years. What happened?" "She's dying," Vivian said simply. "In a hospice. Cancer. Final stage." Ian went pale. He was silent for a long time. "I'm very sorry," he finally said quietly, "but I don't understand. Why did you come to me? Are you her relative?" "I'm her daughter." The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Ian stared at her, unblinking. Her daughter? But Paula didn't have. He stopped mid-sentence. His expression changed. "Years ago," he murmured slowly, "when she was in her last year of medical school. Oh my God." He stood and walked to the window, his back to her. "She told me she'd had an abortion. I gave her money. I thought it was over." "She didn't have an abortion," Vivian said quietly. "She had the baby, and gave her up because you gave up on her." Ian sank into his chair, his face gray and hollow. "So you're my daughter?" "Biologically, yes. But really, I'm no one to you. You lived your life all these years without knowing I existed." He didn't respond. Then, after a pause, he asked, "Do you have proof?" "I have the hospital record. My birth certificate lists Paula Ringer as my mother. Father unknown. I can do a DNA test if you want." "No need," Ian said, shaking his head. "I believe you. You have her eyes. Paula's eyes. I noticed it the moment you walked in, but I didn't think anything of it. God, how blind I've been." He walked back to the window. Vivian saw his shoulders tense. "Why did you come?" he asked quietly, still facing away. "Do you need money? I can help." "I don't need your money." Vivian stood too. "I came because Paula said you had a right to know the truth. That you have a daughter. Now you know. I'll go." "Wait," Ian turned sharply. "Please don't leave. I need time to process all this. It's too much, too fast." "You have time," Vivian said, heading toward the door. "I don't have much. Paula doesn't either. I spend every evening with her. If you want to see her, here's the address of the hospice." She placed a folded piece of paper on his desk and left. In the hallway, her legs gave out for a moment. She leaned against the wall, closed her eyes. Everything inside her was trembling. She had done it, told her father the truth, and now she had no idea what would happen next. Working at Liam's cafes turned out to be harder than Vivian expected. The first weeks were a blur of running between locations, dealing with suppliers, staff issues, accounting. Liam was patient, showing her everything, explaining things step by step. "You're a natural," he said once. "You pick things up fast." "I used to run my own business," Vivian reminded him. "Small, sure, but I know what it's like to build something from nothing." In the evenings, she went to the hospice. Paula grew weaker every day. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just sat in silence, holding hands. "Has Ian come?" Paula would ask. "No," Vivian would answer. Then he hasn't forgiven. Not me, not himself. But one evening, after their last conversation, Vivian arrived at the hospice and saw Ian sitting beside Paula's bed, holding her hand. Both were crying. Vivian wanted to leave quietly, but Paula noticed her. "Vivian, come in, please." Vivian stepped inside. Ian stood, wiping his eyes. "Hello," he said, offering his hand. "Hello," Vivian replied, shaking it. "I wanted to apologize," Ian said, struggling to find the words. "For not being there. For not even knowing you existed. It's unforgivable. I should have known. I should have checked. I was a coward back then, afraid of scandal, of losing my job, my marriage. I took the easy way out, and because of that, you grew up without parents." Paula wept quietly. "Stop," she whispered. "Stop blaming yourself. We're both guilty. We both missed her childhood. But she's here now. Let's just be here. Together." They sat in silence, three strangers connected by blood but not by history. "Tell me about yourself," Ian said gently. "About your life. I want to know." Vivian told him briefly. About the orphanage, her first jobs, her marriage to Zach, the shop, the divorce. "Your ex-husband," Ian frowned. "You said he owns the White Smile Clinic?" "Yes." "Do you know him?" "I've heard of him. Not the best reputation in the dental field. There have been rumors, poor quality work, misleading patients. Nothing ever proven, though." Vivian thought for a moment. "You know, when we lived together, I sometimes overheard him talking to suppliers on the phone. He always demanded cheaper materials, saying patients wouldn't notice the difference. I didn't think much of it back then. I figured he was just being frugal." "That's not frugality," Ian said seriously. "That's a crime. If he's using cheap implants and passing them off as premium, or working with poor quality materials, that's fraud and a threat to people's health." "But how could anyone prove it?" "You'd need patient statements, documents, lab tests. It's a long and complicated process." Vivian nodded, and in that moment, a thought flashed through her mind, strange, frightening, but persistent. The next day, while Vivian was at the cafe on Maple Street, a woman walked in. Thin, pale, dark circles under her eyes, wearing an old jacket. She ordered tea and sat by the window. Vivian brought her order over. "Thank you," the woman said weakly, managing a small smile. "Are you all right?" Vivian asked. "Sorry if that's too personal, but you look very pale." The woman gave a tired laugh. "I feel terrible. My jaw's been hurting for months. The implant they put in was bad. The doctors say it needs to be removed immediately before the infection spreads." "Where did you get the implant?" Vivian felt her stomach tighten. "At White Smile Clinic. Beautiful place, fancy doctor, promised me the best results. I took out a loan to pay for it, a big one. And now this, infection, pain, swelling. When I complained, they said it was my fault, that I didn't take proper care. Said they weren't responsible." Vivian sat down across from her. "What's your name?" "Molly." "Molly, do you want justice?" "I do," Molly said, clenching her fists. "But how? They've got lawyers, connections. I've got nothing, no money, no one to help me." "What if you had help?" Vivian asked quietly. "Someone to gather the evidence with you?" Molly looked at her suspiciously. "Why would you do that?" "Because the owner of White Smile is my ex-husband, and I know he's been cheating his patients, but I can't prove it alone. And together, we can." Molly was silent for a long time. Then she nodded. "All right, I'm in. What do we do first?" That evening, Vivian told Ian everything. He listened intently. "It's risky," he warned. "Leeper won't forgive you for interfering. He could sue you for defamation." "Let him," Vivian said calmly. "But I can't stand by while he keeps hurting people." "Then do it properly," Ian said. "Collect formal complaints from patients. Submit everything to the state medical board. It has to go through official channels. Will you help me?" Ian hesitated, then nodded. "I will. As a professional, I can conduct independent examinations if you find patients willing to consent to testing." "I'll find them," Vivian said firmly. She got to work. Through Molly, she joined online forums and social media groups where people had been complaining about White Smile. She found patients willing to speak out. Ian examined several of them, all showed serious complications caused by low-quality materials. Vivian gathered every document, every medical report, every complaint into a thick folder. She submitted it all to the State Medical Commission and filed an official statement. Weeks later, an inspection arrived at White Smile Clinic. Zach called her in a fury. "Was it you? Did you sick those inspectors on me?" I just helped the people you cheated, Vivian said calmly. You'll regret this. I'll sue you for defamation. It's not defamation if it's true. You used cheap materials, Zach. You charged people for premium work and gave them junk. You broke the law, now you'll face the consequences. This is about the shop, isn't it? You're getting revenge? No, Vivian said, shaking her head even though he couldn't see her. This isn't revenge. This is me stopping you, because you're hurting people and it has to end. She hung up. That evening at the hospice, Paula asked, You did it? Yes. Aren't you afraid of what comes next? I am, but I'm more afraid of doing nothing. My whole life, I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I endured when I should have fought back. Not anymore. Paula smiled weakly. You're strong. Much stronger than I ever was at your age. I learned, Vivian said softly. Life taught me. In time, the inspection ended. The results were devastating for Zach. Violations of hygiene standards. Use of unregistered materials. Patient fraud. The clinic faced massive fines and possible loss of license. Zach showed up at the cafe where Vivian was working. He burst through the door looking disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, his face red with anger. Vivian, we need to talk. Liam, who was behind the counter, immediately stepped forward. What do you want? None of your business, Zach snapped. Vivian, come outside with me. Say what you need to say here, Vivian replied calmly, not moving. Or leave. Zach looked around. A few customers were watching him. He lowered his voice. Vivian, I came to fix things. Let's just talk. Privately. No. Vivian, please, he took a step closer. I know I messed up. I can change. Withdraw your complaint. I'll give you your store back. We can start over. Vivian looked at him and suddenly understood. He wasn't sorry. He was scared. Scared of losing his clinic, his money, his reputation. Scared of facing the consequences. Zach, you didn't come here because you've changed. You came because you're afraid. There's a big difference. Does it matter? I'm ready to make things right. It's too late for that. You should have made things right when you were hurting people, when you were taking their last money for treatments that ruined their health. Now you'll face the law. I won't let you destroy me. I'm not destroying you, Vivian said tiredly. You did that yourself, with your greed and lies. I just let the truth come out. Zach stood there breathing heavily. You'll regret this, he hissed. Then he turned and stormed out, slamming the door. Liam came over. You okay? Yeah, Vivian nodded. Just tired of it all. Paula died quietly that night, in her sleep. The nurse called Vivian early in the morning. Vivian, you should come. Your mother, she's gone. Vivian arrived quickly. Paula lay still, peaceful, free from pain. Vivian sat beside her and took her cold hand. I'm sorry I didn't get the chance to really know you, she whispered. I'm sorry I didn't have time to forgive you. But inside, there was more than sorrow, there was emptiness. How do you grieve someone you barely knew? How do you miss a mother who'd only been in your life for a few fleeting months? Ian came later. He stepped into the room and stopped at the door. I'm so sorry, he said softly. Me too. They stood on opposite sides of the bed, two strangers connected by the woman who was gone. I'll take care of the funeral arrangements, Ian said. Please, let me do that much. Thank you. They buried Paula on a cold November day. Only a small group came, co-workers, a few neighbors, some distant relatives. Vivian stood by the grave next to Ian. Liam was there too, holding her hand. She was a good doctor, one of her colleagues said. Always helped others. Such a shame she left so soon. A good doctor, but a bad mother. Could someone be both? After the funeral, Ian invited Vivian to a cafe. We need to talk, he said. They sat by the window. Ian ordered tea but didn't touch it. Vivian, I've been thinking a lot, he began. About Paula, about you, about everything. I can't change the past. I can't give you back the childhood you lost. But I want to be in your life, if you'll let me. Vivian stayed quiet. I'm not asking you to call me Dad, or to love me. I just want to know you. To be there, if you'll allow it. To be family, even a little. You have your own family, Vivian reminded him. A wife, children. How will you explain my existence? Ian sighed. I divorced years ago. My kids are grown. My son works in another state. My daughter got married and moved to the West Coast. We stay in touch, but not often. I told them about you. They took it well. My son even asked when he can meet his sister. Vivian gave a faint smile. Sister. Sounds strange. But it's true. You are their sister. And my daughter. Maybe I was a lousy father all these years, but that doesn't change the fact. Vivian looked out the window. Snow was starting to fall, the first of the season. All right, she said finally. We can try. But slowly. No pressure. Deal, Ian said, smiling for the first time. Thank you. They began meeting regularly, going for coffee, talking about life. Ian told her about his work, his past, and about Paula, what she'd been like when she was young. Vivian shared stories about the orphanage, about her shop, her struggles. Slowly, carefully, they were learning how to be father and daughter. Meanwhile, the case against Zach was gaining momentum. The state medical board had forwarded all the evidence to the prosecutor's office, and an official investigation had begun. More and more patients were coming forward with complaints. One evening, as Vivian was closing the cafe on Maple Street, a woman approached her, Molly, the same woman who had started it all. Vivian, thank you, Molly said, handing her a small bouquet of chrysanthemums. Thanks to you, I found another doctor. He agreed to fix what Leeper did once he heard the whole story. I'm glad to hear that, Vivian said, taking the flowers. How are you feeling? Much better. You know, I wanted to tell you. At first, I was angry at you. When I found out you were his ex-wife, I thought you were part of it. That you helped him cheat people. Vivian frowned slightly. I had no idea what he was doing at the clinic. I realized that later, after you helped me gather the paperwork, risking your own safety. I'm sorry I doubted you. It's okay, Vivian said softly. I understand. Molly hesitated, then added quietly, Vivian, there's something else. Leeper's been pressuring witnesses, calling them, threatening them, saying he'll sue for defamation. Some people have already withdrawn their complaints. Vivian felt her stomach tighten. Has he tried to intimidate you? He did. But I'm not backing down. I told him that to his face. Let him sue. I've got a lawyer now. Your father helped me find one. He's a good man, by the way. Yeah, Vivian nodded. He is. After Molly left, Vivian called Ian. Zach's threatening witnesses, she said. Some have already pulled their statements. I know, Ian sighed. The prosecutor called me. But even if a few drop out, there are still enough for the case to move forward. Don't worry. And if he comes after me, tries to threaten me, then you call the police immediately, and me. I'll be there. Vivian hung up and sat behind the counter, exhausted. She was tired of fighting, tired of the tension, tired of constantly waiting for Zach's next move. The cafe door opened. Liam walked in with Dana. Hey, he said with a smile. We thought we'd stop by. Dana wanted to show you her new drawing. Dana handed her a sheet of paper. Vivian looked at it. The drawing showed a house, whole, with windows and a door. Beside it stood three figures, a man, a woman, and a little girl, holding hands. It's beautiful, Vivian said softly. Is this your family? Dana nodded. That's Dad, that's me, and this. She hesitated, blushing a little. This is you, if you want. Vivian felt a lump in her throat. Dana, that's the best drawing I've ever seen. Thank you. The girl hugged her tightly. Liam watched them, his eyes warm and soft. Vivian, he said quietly, stepping closer when Dana wandered off toward the pastry display. There's something I need to tell you. What is it? He hesitated. I like having you in our lives. Not just as a manager. Not just as an old friend. As what, then? As part of the family. Dana's gotten so attached to you. I've seen how she's changed these past few months. She smiles again. She talks. She's doing better at school. That's because of you. I was just there for her, Vivian said quietly. No, Liam shook his head. You were more than that. You understood her. You didn't try to replace her mom, you just became someone important, someone she trusts. Vivian didn't say anything. Her heart was pounding. Vivian, Liam continued, his voice softer now, I'm not rushing things. We've both been through loss. You need time after your divorce. I need time after Courtney. But I want you to know, you matter to me. A lot. He took her hand. Not now. Not tomorrow. But maybe someday, when we're both ready, we could be something more. Not just friends, but a family. A real one. Vivian looked at him, at his kind, tired eyes, at his hand holding hers, at Dana humming quietly while choosing a pastry. Maybe, she said softly. Someday. If it's meant to be. It will be, Liam said confidently. I know it will. Sometime later, the prosecutor summoned Vivian for questioning. She spent hours giving her statement, explaining everything she knew about Zach's methods, his deals with suppliers, his obsession with cutting costs, his disregard for patients' safety. You understand your ex-husband might accuse you of collusion? The investigator asked. He could claim you made this all up because of the divorce. I understand, Vivian said firmly. But I have witnesses, patients who were harmed, and expert reports proving the use of substandard materials. These aren't accusations. They're facts. Thank you. That'll be all for now. When Vivian stepped outside the building, she saw Zach leaning against the wall, smoking, right under a no smoking sign. So, he said, narrowing his eyes, happy now? Got what you wanted? I didn't want anything except justice. Justice, he scoffed, flicking his cigarette away. You've destroyed my life. They're shutting down my clinic, revoking my license. I could go to prison, all because of your revenge. It's not revenge, Vivian said tiredly. It's the consequences of your actions. You cheated people, Zach. You hurt them. You took their money and their trust. Did you really think you'd get away with it? Everyone does it, he shouted. Everyone cuts corners. Everyone overcharges. Why should I be the one to pay? Because, Vivian said quietly, meeting his eyes, someone finally had the courage to stop you. Zach flicked his cigarette to the ground. You'll regret this. I swear you will. I'll find a way to get back at you. Go ahead, Vivian said with a shrug. I've got nothing left to lose. You took my shop. Destroyed 17 years of my life. What else can you take? She walked past him without looking back. That evening, Vivian was at the Rainbow House Orphanage. She had started volunteering there once a week, reading to the kids, helping them with homework, or just talking to them. Miss Vivian, a boy called out. Bruce. Look, he handed her a drawing. It showed a woman holding flowers. Is that me? Vivian smiled. Yeah. Do you like it? It's beautiful. Thank you. Next to him sat a little girl named Leslie. She was drawing too. On her paper was a picture of a family, a mom, a dad, and children. Leslie, is that your family? Vivian asked. No, the girl shook her head. That's the family I want. When someone adopts me. Vivian sat down beside her. Has anyone come to meet you? Maybe future parents? They came. But they picked other kids. The little ones. I'm already big. Nobody wants me. Her voice was calm, no tears, no anger. Just a quiet statement of fact. Vivian knew that feeling. She'd lived it herself. You know, Leslie, Vivian said softly, sometimes parents don't come right away. Sometimes you have to wait. But that doesn't mean you're not wanted. Did you wait long? Many years, Vivian said honestly. No one ever adopted me. I grew up here, in a place just like this. But I didn't give up. I built my own life. Found work I love. Found people who became my family. Not by blood, but by heart. Will that happen to me too? It will. I promise. You just can't stop believing. Leslie leaned against her, and Bruce came to sit on the other side. The three of them sat together, and Vivian realized these kids were just like she had been, lost, unloved, waiting for a miracle. And in that moment, an idea crossed her mind. Wild, terrifying, but it felt right. That evening, she called Liam. Liam, I need to talk to you. Seriously. Did something happen? No. Just, come over. It's important. They met at the cafe. Liam sat across from her, watching her intently. Okay, you're starting to scare me. What is it? Vivian took a deep breath. I want to adopt a child. From Rainbow House. A girl named Leslie. She's 10, and nobody wants her because everyone's looking for babies. She's smart, kind, creative, and she's been waiting her whole life for a family. I want to give her that chance. Liam stayed silent. I know it sounds crazy, Vivian went on. I don't even have my own place yet. The apartment is still tied up in the divorce. My job isn't permanent. I've only been working for you for 3 months. But I can't just walk away. I can't leave her there knowing I could change her life. Vivian, Liam said, taking her hand. You're the most incredible person I've ever met. So you think I'm insane? No, he smiled. I think you're right, and I want to help. If you need proof of steady income, I'll write it up. If you need a reference, I'll write that too. And if you need a place to live, I've got a 2-bedroom apartment I rent out. You can have it, rent-free, until you're back on your feet. Vivian looked at him, speechless. Why? She finally asked. Why are you doing all this for me? Because I see in you the kind of person I want to be, strong, honest, willing to help others even when things are hard. And because he hesitated, then looked her in the eye. Because I love you, Vivian. Not just as a friend, truly love you. Vivian froze. Liam, She didn't know what to say. You don't have to answer now, he said, squeezing her hand gently. I'm not expecting anything. I just wanted you to know. Whatever happens, I'll be here. As your friend. Your partner. Someone who believes in you. Vivian nodded, unable to trust her voice. The adoption process turned out to be long and exhausting. Endless forms, medical exams, interviews with psychologists, home inspections. Vivian filled out piles of paperwork, answered the same questions over and over again. You're not married, said the social worker, a woman with cold, assessing eyes. You don't own property. You've only been working for 3 months. You understand a child needs stability? I do, Vivian said patiently. But I have a steady income, a place to live, and the desire to give a child a home. Isn't that enough? What is enough, then? Vivian finally snapped. I grew up in an orphanage. I know what it's like to wait for someone to come and realize no one will. Leslie's been waiting for 8 years. Everyone wants babies. Her chances shrink every year. I can give her a family. Why doesn't that count? The woman was silent for a long time, then sighed. Bring proof of income for the last few months. Letters of recommendation. A psychologist's evaluation. Housing documents. Then we'll see. Vivian spent a month gathering everything. Liam helped by providing proof of income, listing her as a manager earning $4,000 a month. Ian wrote a glowing letter describing Vivian as responsible and reliable. The psychologist who had worked with her after the divorce gave a positive report. Liam also signed a 5-year agreement letting Vivian use his apartment rent-free, a small 2-bedroom on the outskirts of town, but clean, bright, freshly renovated. This is too much, Vivian told him. You're doing too much for me. It's not too much, Liam said firmly. It's what people do when they care about each other. Finally, after 2 long months, the answer came from Child Services. Vivian had been approved as a foster parent. The only thing left was to get Leslie's consent. Vivian came to the orphanage on Saturday. Leslie was sitting in the playroom, drawing. Hi, Vivian said, sitting down beside her. Hi, Miss Vivian. Leslie, there's something I want to ask you. Vivian was more nervous than she'd ever been in her life. I want you to come live with me. I've done all the paperwork. If you agree, I'll become your guardian. We'll have an apartment, your own room, a new school, will be a family. Leslie froze, the crayon still in her hand. For real? You'll take me with you? Yes, if you want to. Leslie was silent for a moment, then burst into tears. Loud, desperate sobs as she threw her arms around Vivian. I want to. Please, don't change your mind. Vivian hugged her tightly, stroking her hair, barely holding back her own tears. I won't change my mind. I promise. A week later, Leslie moved in. Vivian met her at the orphanage gates with a big bag of new clothes and toys. Liam came with the car to drive them to the apartment. Dana sat in the back seat, holding a teddy bear. This is for you, she said shyly to Leslie, so you won't be scared in your new home. Leslie pressed the bear to her chest. Thank you. They rode in silence. Leslie stared out the window, her eyes wide, full of hope and fear all at once. The apartment greeted them with warmth and the smell of new paint. Liam and Dana helped set up Leslie's room, a bed, a desk, a wardrobe, a bookshelf. Vivian hung up Leslie's drawings from the orphanage on the wall. This is your room, Vivian said. Yours. You can do whatever you want here. Leslie stood in the doorway, hesitant to step inside. Really mine? Really? Leslie took a small step, looked around, then sat on the bed and touched the blanket gently. I can sleep here? Of course. It's your bed. And if I break something, will you send me back? Vivian sat beside her and put an arm around her shoulders. No. I won't send you back, no matter what happens. You're with me now. We're family. Leslie pressed closer and started crying quietly, but these were different tears. Not of sadness, but of relief. The first few weeks were hard. Leslie was afraid to be left alone, afraid that Vivian would leave and never return. She woke up at night screaming. I'm here, Vivian would whisper. I didn't go anywhere. Slowly, Leslie began to adjust. She started school, made friends, especially with Dana, and began to trust again. Vivian stayed close, taking her to school, bringing her home, cooking dinner, helping with homework. Liam often came by in the evenings with Dana. The girls would do their homework together, play, and laugh. Vivian watched them and thought, this was it. This was what everything had been leading to. Meanwhile, the case against Zach finally went to trial. Vivian was called as a witness. She stood before the court calmly, her voice steady. Zach sat on the defendant's bench, thinner, older, wearing a wrinkled suit. When he saw Vivian, his eyes filled with hatred. Vivian gave her testimony clearly and firmly. She described what she'd seen, what she'd heard, how Zach had cut costs on materials and put patients at risk. Zach's lawyer tried to shake her, to make her look bitter or vindictive, but she didn't flinch. "Are you trying to get revenge on your ex-husband for the divorce?" he asked. "No," Vivian said evenly. "I'm trying to protect the people he hurt and deceived." "But you lost your business because of him, didn't you?" "I lost my business because of my own choice," she replied. "I gave up the store to spend time with my dying mother. That was my decision. The fact that he shut it down and destroyed what I built over 7 years, that was his. But this isn't revenge. It's justice." The trial went on for weeks. Witness after witness came forward. Patients told horrifying stories: cheap implants, infections, lost teeth, constant pain. Experts confirmed the use of low-quality materials. Documents showed inflated prices and false records. When the prosecutor finished, he said, "Zach Leeper systematically violated his patients' trust, putting their health at risk for profit. How many more would have suffered if he hadn't been stopped? We demand the maximum penalty allowed by law." The verdict came later, guilty. But the sentence was lighter than expected: probation, a large fine, and a 10-year suspension from medical practice. "It's not fair," Molly said after the hearing. "He should be in prison." "I know," Vivian agreed. "But at least he can't hurt anyone anymore. The clinic's closed. His license is gone. He's no longer a dentist. What will he do now?" "I don't know," Vivian said. "And I don't care." Zach left the city soon after. Vivian didn't ask where he went. What mattered was that he was gone. No more threats, no more fear, no more tension. Life began to settle into peace. Vivian worked at Liam's cafes. Leslie was doing well at school. Dana had become almost like a sister. Ian visited on weekends, bringing gifts and stories. "You know," he said one day, "I envy you." "Why?" "Because you started over. After everything, the orphanage, the bad marriage, losing your business, you didn't give up. You built a new life. That's strength." "It's not strength," Vivian said quietly. "It's necessity. I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," Ian replied. "You could have given up, closed yourself off. But you chose to fight. That's what real strength is." One winter evening, while snow was falling softly outside, Liam came over. The girls were in Leslie's room doing homework, and Vivian was in the kitchen making dinner. "Vivian," Liam called from the living room. She wiped her hands and walked out. He was standing by the window. "Remember when I told you I loved you?" "I remember. I still do. Even more now. You're an incredible woman, Vivian, strong, kind, brave. When I'm with you, I feel whole. Dana adores you. Leslie looks up to you like a hero. And me? I just want to be with you. Always." He turned toward her. "Marry me." Vivian froze. "Liam, Don't answer right away," he said, stepping closer. "Just think about it. We could bring our families together, become one. Dana would have a mom. Leslie would have a dad. We'd finally have what we've all been missing, a real family." Vivian stayed silent. Her mind was spinning. Did she love him? Yes. But was she ready to marry again, after Zach, after all that pain? "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. "Scared of making another mistake." "I'm scared too," Liam said, taking her hands. "I'm afraid of betraying Courtney's memory. Afraid I won't be a good husband. But more than anything, I'm afraid of losing you, of missing my chance at happiness." Vivian looked into his eyes. She saw honesty, warmth, love. "Give me some time," she said softly. "I need to think." "Take all the time you need," he nodded. "I'll wait." Vivian thought for a week, weighing everything, overthinking, doubting. But every time she saw Liam, how he treated Leslie, how he cared for Dana, how he looked at her, she knew he wasn't Zach. He was different, honest, open, real. And one evening, as they sat in the cafe after closing, she said, "Yes." "What, yes?" Liam blinked. "Yes, I'll marry you, if the offer still stands." For a moment, he just stared at her. Then he grabbed her, lifted her off the ground, and laughed. "Of course it still stands." "Oh my God, Vivian, are you serious?" Completely, she laughed through tears. "I want this. I want to be with you. I want us to be a family." They got married quietly that spring, in a small cafe surrounded by friends and family. Ian was there, bringing his son and daughter, Vivian's half-siblings. They met her with warmth and curiosity. Dana and Leslie were bridesmaids, standing proudly beside Vivian in matching dresses, both glowing with joy. "Now we're really sisters," Dana whispered to Leslie. "And we have a mom and dad," Leslie whispered back. After the wedding, they joined their businesses, Liam's 3 cafes and the new flower shop Vivian opened with the savings she'd built up over the past year. She called it Forget-Me-Not, in memory of what she'd been through and a reminder never to forget where she came from. Bruce, the boy from the orphanage, was adopted by another family. Vivian saw them once, Bruce walking hand in hand with his new mom, smiling. She was happy for him, though a small ache tugged inside. You can't save everyone. And that's okay. Life didn't turn into a fairy tale. There were challenges. Leslie sometimes withdrew, afraid of being abandoned. Dana got jealous, feeling she was losing her dad's attention. The businesses demanded time, money, and nerves. But they handled it, together, as a family. And 1 year after the wedding, Vivian sat in the kitchen, sipping tea and watching spring bloom outside the window. In the living room, Liam was building something with the girls, laughter, voices, life filling the air. She thought back to a year earlier, standing in that courtroom, giving up everything to spend her last days with her dying mother. Back then, she thought her life was over, that everything was lost. But it turned out, everything was just beginning. The real part, the honest part. She hadn't gotten full justice, Zach didn't go to prison, he simply left town. She hadn't saved every child from the orphanage, only Leslie. She hadn't built a business empire, just a small shop and a share in Liam's cafes. But she had found what she'd been searching for her whole life, a family, a home, a place where she was loved, not for what she did, but simply for who she was. And that was worth more than any victory. Time passed. Vivian stood in her Forget-Me-Not shop, putting together a wedding bouquet, white roses, eucalyptus, hydrangeas. Her hands moved with quiet confidence and ease. She had learned to love her work again, not as proof of her worth, but because it brought her joy. "Mom, can I help?" Leslie peeked out from the back room. She'd grown taller, her hair long now, Vivian braided it every morning before school. "Of course. Hand me that ribbon, please, the satin, cream-colored one." Leslie passed it to her and stood beside her, watching carefully. "Mom, when can I start making bouquets by myself?" "When you're ready," Vivian smiled. "Want to start with something simple? After school, I'll show you the basics." "Really?" Leslie's face lit up. "Really?" The doorbell jingled as the shop door opened. Ian walked in carrying a box of pastries. "Good afternoon, ladies. I come bearing dessert." "Grandpa." Leslie ran to him. Ian scooped her up and spun her around. Over time, he had become a real grandfather to her, taking her to the zoo, buying her books, taking her to the theater. Vivian saw how he was trying to make up for what he'd missed, trying to give Leslie what he hadn't been able to give her. They sat at a small table in the corner of the shop. Ian unpacked a box of pastries, and Leslie grabbed an eclair, taking a big, happy bite. "How's the clinic?" Vivian asked. "Good. Had a tough surgery today, but it went well." He paused for a moment. "You know, I've been thinking. I want to start a charity program, free dental care for kids from orphanages. It's important, and most of them don't even get basic treatment." Vivian looked at him warmly. "That's a wonderful idea. Need help setting it up? I'd appreciate that. You're practically a businesswoman now, your own shop, shares in the cafes. You've got more experience than I do." Vivian chuckled. "Businesswoman. Sounds fancy. I'm just doing what I know how to do. And doing it perfectly." That evening, home was full of pleasant chaos. Liam was cooking dinner. He'd worked a morning shift at the cafe, then picked up the girls from school and brought them home. Dana was doing homework at the kitchen table. Leslie was drawing in her room. "How was your day?" Liam kissed Vivian. "Good. Wedding orders, corporate arrangements, tomorrow's going to be busy. Need a hand? I'll manage. What about you?" "Also good. The espresso machine broke at the Maple Street Cafe, but the repair guy fixed it fast. The girls did great today. Dana got an A in math, and Leslie drew a portrait of her teacher. The art class loved it. They had dinner together at the big table, chatting about school, work, and weekend plans. Ordinary family life. Ordinary happiness. After dinner, Vivian helped the girls with homework and tucked them into bed. Leslie still sometimes asked her to stay until she fell asleep. "Mom, do you ever regret taking me?" Leslie asked suddenly in the dark. Never, Vivian said firmly. Not once. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And Dana? Dana too. You're both the best. And Dad Liam? Dad Liam too. Leslie was quiet for a moment. Mom, do you remember my real mom? The one who had me? Vivian had known that question would come one day. No, sweetheart, I never met her, but I know she loved you. Otherwise, she wouldn't have taken you to the orphanage, she would have just left you somewhere. She brought you to a place where you'd be fed, clothed, and cared for. That means she wanted you to be safe. Then why didn't she come back for me? I don't know. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she was scared. People can be weak, Leslie, but that doesn't make them bad. I forgive her, Leslie said softly, because if she had taken me back, I wouldn't have found you. And you're the best mom in the world. Vivian hugged her, feeling her throat tighten. Go to sleep, my love. That night, Vivian couldn't sleep. She got up and stepped out onto the balcony. The city slept under the stars. Somewhere out there, in another city, Zach was living his life. Sometimes Vivian thought about him, wondering if he'd found a way to start over. Opened another clinic under a different name. Found some loophole to keep working. Probably. People like him always did. But that wasn't her problem anymore. She'd done what she could, stopped him when it mattered, saved the one she could. The rest wasn't on her. Can't sleep? Liam came out and wrapped his arms around her from behind. Just thinking. About what? Life. How much has changed over the years? For the better? Yes, definitely for the better. Liam was quiet for a moment. You know, sometimes I think about Courtney. I wonder what she'd say if she saw us now. She'd probably be happy, Vivian said, turning to face him. She's the one who told you to find me. She must have known we'd help each other heal. She was wise. Wiser than me. She was your first love. It's okay to remember her. I don't mind. I know. You're not the jealous type. They stood there in silence, holding each other, surrounded by the quiet hum of the city, glowing windows, distant cars, the soft rhythm of the night. Vivian, I want us to have another child, Liam said suddenly. Vivian froze. To adopt? Yes. Or foster. We could give another child a home. We've got room, we've got love to give. Why not? Vivian thought about it. 2 years ago, when she took Leslie in, she thought that was the limit of what she could handle. But now life was steady. The business was doing well. The girls had grown. What if we can't handle it? We will. Together. Then let's try. But not yet. Maybe in a year, when Leslie's completely settled, and Dana's ready for the idea of another brother or sister. Deal, Liam said, smiling. The next morning, Vivian drove to the Rainbow House Orphanage. She visited once a month, bringing gifts, books, and sweets, and volunteering on Saturdays. The director, the same woman who had been there 20 years ago, met her in the hallway. Vivian, I'm so glad you came. We have a new boy, Dale. He's 7, just arrived a few weeks ago. Very quiet, barely talks. Maybe you could try to speak with him? Vivian walked into the playroom. The boy sat in the corner, hugging his knees. He was thin, with huge frightened eyes. Hi, Dale. I'm Vivian. The boy didn't answer. You know, I used to live here too. A long time ago. I was scared. Lonely. I thought no one would ever want me. But I was wrong. Dale looked up at her. Did someone adopt you? No. No one did. I grew up here and left when I turned 18. And then what? Then I lived. Worked. Tried to find my place. Made mistakes. Fell down. Got back up. And in the end, I found it. Family, home, happiness. Not right away, but I did. Will I find it too? You will. Absolutely. The main thing is not to give up. And to remember that you matter, even when it doesn't feel like it. Dale nodded. Vivian handed him a box of cookies. Here. These are for you. The boy took the box and gave her a small, shy smile for the first time. Thank you. That evening, the whole family gathered in the kitchen. Liam announced that he wanted to expand the business, open a 4th cafe. Dana admitted she had a crush on a boy from her class. Leslie showed them a new drawing, a family of 6. Who's the 6th? Vivian asked. The little brother. Or sister. The one we're going to adopt. Dad said we'd bring another kid home. I want a baby brother. Me too. Dana chimed in. Vivian and Liam exchanged a look and smiled. Well, Liam said, seems like the decision's been made for us. That night, before bed, Vivian took out an old photograph, the only one she had left from the orphanage. A group photo of the graduates. 42 faces. 42 stories. She found herself, a thin girl with serious eyes, second row. Right next to her stood Liam, 3 years older, almost grown. Both staring into the camera, unsmiling, unaware of what life had planned for them. And now, more than 20 years later, they were here. Together. With children, a home, a business. With a past that hadn't been erased, but no longer defined them. Vivian put the photo back in the drawer and lay down beside Liam. "Are you happy?" he asked in the dark. "Yes," Vivian said softly. "I'm happy. Not perfectly happy, but truly happy." "Is there a difference?" "A big one. Perfect happiness is a fairy tale. Real happiness is when there are problems, fears, hard days, but you have people beside you to face them with. It's when you wake up in the morning and know your life has meaning, that you matter, that you have a place you want to come back to." Liam kissed her temple. "Then I'm happy too. Truly happy." They fell asleep in each other's arms. And in the morning, life went on, breakfast, school, work, everyday routines. Ordinary life for an ordinary family, something that once seemed impossible for 2 kids from Rainbow House. Vivian no longer thought about Zach. She didn't dream of revenge or perfect justice. She just lived, raising her daughters, growing her business, loving and caring. Somewhere, in another city, Zach probably opened a new clinic. Maybe under a different name. Maybe he was still deceiving people. Maybe he had learned his lesson and changed. Vivian didn't know, and didn't want to. Her life was here, in this city, in this apartment, with these people. 6 months later, they adopted Dale, the same boy from the orphanage. He joined their family slowly, carefully, like a shy kitten learning to trust. The girls accepted him immediately, playing, helping, showing him not to be afraid. A year later, Ian launched his charity program. Vivian helped organize it, bringing in sponsors through Liam's connections. Soon, the program was running, offering free dental care for children from orphanages. "You know," Ian said at the opening ceremony, "I can't undo the fact that I wasn't there for you as a child. But I can give other kids what I should have given you. That's my way of making things right." "You don't need to make anything right," Vivian said, hugging him. "You're doing something good. That's enough." Another year passed. Forget-Me-Not expanded. Vivian opened a second shop, a small flower stand in a mall, and hired 2 new florists. The business was thriving. Liam's cafes were growing too, first a 5th location, then a 6th. Their small family venture was turning into something bigger. But the real success wasn't in the money or the expansion. It was in the evenings when Vivian came home and was met at the door, by the kids running toward her, by Liam's arms around her, by laughter and the sound of life filling the house. And every night, just before falling asleep, she'd think, "I'm home. I matter. I have a family." And that was enough. Justice hadn't fully won. Zach never went to prison. Not every child from the orphanage found a family. Not every problem was solved. But Vivian had learned to live with that, to accept the world's imperfections, to be grateful for what she had, instead of grieving what she didn't. She had gone from an abandoned child to a woman who built her own family, from a forgotten orphan to someone who was deeply needed. And that journey, though quiet, imperfect, but real, was her victory. That night, years ago, when she gave everything up in that courtroom, the judge couldn't believe it. A woman giving up the business she'd fought for, just to be with a dying mother she barely knew. Back then, it looked like a total defeat. But it wasn't. It was the beginning of her true path, of a real life, of real happiness. And years later, as she looked at her sleeping children, her husband beside her, the photos on the walls, Vivian understood she hadn't lost that day. She had won. She'd won the most important thing of all, the right to live the way she wanted, the right to be happy, the right to have a family. And for that, everything she'd been through, the pain, the losses, the fear, had been worth it. Because at the end of that long road, there was a home waiting for her. A real one. Her own. The one she had built, piece by piece, from the fragments of a broken life. And it was beautiful. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support inspires us to keep bringing you new, captivating stories every day. You can already find our next story on the main page. We wish you all the best and much happiness in life.